Happy Wednesday, folks, and welcome back to #AskGSM. Here today, episode 393 for Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. So if you couldn't already tell, I recorded last week's show because it was my birthday. I recorded it early, left soon after. Literally, right after I was done recording, I get a text from Mr. Marceau. One, wishing me a happy birthday, but also two, notifying me of the releases that happened that very same morning, like 20 minutes earlier. So clearly in talking about Braun and Aleister Black and all that other stuff, that was recorded well before the releases happened. As you guys probably could tell, I put up the episode while I was watching Dodgeball, the movie from '04, great movie. I put up the video while I was watching that later on in the night, right before midnight, so it still fell on June 2nd on Wednesday itself. That was why it went up so late. I was really not on my laptop at all last week. But yeah, so hopefully, the bottom line is this. Hopefully we have no breaking releases, because I feel like this happens every single time where news breaks as soon as I'm finished recording. Whether it be for this or for WrestleRant Radio with RJ, which I'm actually going to be recording with him a little bit later today, talking all things Takeover and AEW and Raw and whatever else. So I feel like news breaks every single time after I hit the record button, or at least after I'm done, you know? So hopefully that's not the case today. No one else gets released. I'm sure more releases are coming at some point, but hopefully not today. Another thing I did want to bring up, what was it? It was that, and then it was also, the Low-Key show drops today. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Probably by the time that you're listening to this, I have. I am checking it out later today. We are bringing back the Marvel reviews. Doc and I broke down every installment in the MCU last year right here on the channel. So that's coming back. Not the movie reviews, of course, but the low-key reviews with myself, Doc, and Phil Lindsay. We have a great time breaking down WandaVision a couple of months ago, then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now Loki premiering today. The review should be up on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're talking tomorrow. Video should be up on Friday. So keep an ear out for that. If you guys want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop your question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to bring up too. This is episode 393, which means that we are quickly approaching episode 400, which, according to my count, is dropping on the first Wednesday of August. Now, the 8-year anniversary of the show, which is wild to even think about, is coming up in July, which we did a show on the anniversary itself because it dropped on a Wednesday last year. So, come the 400th episode, what I've done for the last couple of anniversary shows, not anniversary shows, but like the last couple of 100 episodes, celebrations. In 2017, we had the 200th episode. Went live with that one. Went a number of hours. It was a lot of fun. We went live for the 300th episode 2 years ago, which it feels like it was yesterday, but it was indeed 2 years ago. For the 300th episode, we went live, and that was back in 2019. So for the 400th episode, as long as I'm free that day and nothing comes up, and which stuff always kind of tends to, I do plan to go live. And I want to go live more often. I said that after the anniversary show last year, and I just never did. It really is just a timing thing. Sometimes I film these or I record these early in the morning. Sometimes I record them in the afternoon. Sometimes I record them late on Wednesdays. It really depends on what's going on in my schedule and stuff like that. I am hoping and planning to go live that day. I think that would be a lot of fun. And I love talking to you guys in the chat, and some of you may not be around and you send in questions beforehand. I love that too. Obviously, we need a base of questions to go off of, but I don't know if it'll be a video or just audio. I have no fucking clue, but keep an ear out for that come the 400th episode in early August. Let's get started here with the 393 episode with all your questions for today. Starting with Connor from YouTube. His question was, do you think the impact/memorability of Double or Nothing is going to be diminished by nearly every single feud from the show continuing to proceed afterwards? Also, how long do you think before a Go-Go needs to move on from, at least on television, taking people out with one single punch? I didn't see the pay-per-view match, which I heard was good, but he can't keep winning as soon as he lands a single punch forever, right? No, I mean, obviously that's going to die down at some point. Not exactly the same thing, but like it was when Big Show was doing that gimmick what was it, in 2011 when he was knocking people out with one punch. He did it during the Taker feud too, I think, back in 2008. But they had like the WMD, the world's most destructive weapon, whatever it was. And he did the one punch, would knock people out with it. But it was in the face. Like, if he hit you in the stomach, it was okay. But if he hit you in the face, like, you were done for. It was fucking dumb. The Agogo one is even stupider because Agogo would hit you in the stomach and these people would go down for the count. The match was fine. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was good. I mean, I thought he did well. Agogo clearly has a future at this. He has a great presence about him. The guy can talk, his in-ring ability. It reminds me a lot of Jade Cargill, where when I saw her first wrestle, and I had very low expectations for her, admittedly, she ended up exceeding all those expectations and having a really good performance in that mixed tag team match. She had a match with Red Velvet on Dynamite, also excelled there as well. So I think Agogo can do very well at this. The booking is key, though. Having him fucking lose to Cody Rhodes, I thought was a mistake. And then having him and QT beat Cody and Lee Johnson on Dynamite, with QT being the one to pin Cody and not Agogo. What the fuck is going on here? The Agogo stuff is going to have to change at some point. I hate when they do stuff like this. I completely agree. WWE will do it. Other promotions will do it. Where they build up this big move in like a single punch type thing. You can't do that forever. He's not going to win all of his matches with a single punch. At a certain point, his matches will have to become more competitive like they were with Cody Double or Nothing. So they will have to move on from it at some point. It is just really weird. I know he has a boxing background, but going forward, I mean, that tag team match, for example, why didn't he put down Lee Johnson with one single punch to the gut? Cody Rhodes is basically God in AEW, but Lee Johnson could have easily gone down to the punch. Why? Why couldn't he have? You know what I mean? Going back to the first part of your question about the feuds continuing, RJ asked the same thing, so I'll just answer it right here. You're absolutely right. I don't think it makes Double or Nothing any less special of a show. I thought it was a great pay-per-view. If you told me you thought that it was one of, if not their best pay-per-view to date, I wouldn't argue with you there. I don't know if it was the best pay-per-view they've done to date, but it really, the good far outweighed the bad. Like, the Rhodes and Agogo stuff the match was fine, the outcome was shit. None of that made any sense. That was easily the worst part about the show. Sheeta and Baker wasn't amazing. It was a good match with the right outcome. Really, I didn't have anything else to complain about from that show. Stadium Stampede went a little long in the tooth, but again, just merely nitpicking there because I thought overall it was entertaining. I thought it was a great show. The feuds continuing isn't going to make me say, oh, the pay-per-view is pointless, because it was still a great show with a very hot crowd, and a lot of the outcomes were what they should have been. But I do not agree with most of these feuds continuing. I completely agree with you on that, and RJ and anyone else saying the same thing. Because I'm watching Dynamite last week, which wasn't a very good show by Dynamite standards, and I'm thinking, why are we seeing literally the continuation of every fucking feud from this pay-per-view? Literally. Like, we're getting on Dynamite this week, Hangman and 10 versus Cage and Hobbs. So Paige and Team Taz is not over yet, which is fine because I guess they only had one or two matches. You don't really need to continue the feud. I mean, what are you really going to do? Paige has already beaten Ricky Starks and Cage. They're not going to do a third match, I wouldn't think. Is he going to face Hobbs next? I feel like you can kind of move on from that feud. They're continuing, let's see here. Orange Cassidy tease not being done with Omega, which I feel might be done, but if it's not, I mean, that's one feud I wouldn't mind continuing because Cassidy got pinned, but it was in fluky fashion. So they could do a one-on-one match. Inner Circle versus Pinnacle? Absolutely not. I mean, the whole ass-backwards booking of the feud has not done anything to make me give a shit about the fact that it's continuing. Like, to do singles matches between every member of the group, like Santana and Ortiz versus FTR, sign me up. That sounds cool. Hager and Wardlow, they've already had a match, an MMA fight. Who cares? I mean, it might be interesting. It might be entertaining. It's not really necessary. We've already seen them fight before. Guevara and Spears. Who gives a fuck about Shawn Spears? And then Jericho and MJF, we've also seen before. What is the end game here? Another multi-man match? They've already blown off two of their biggest stipulations they can do. Well, Mimosa Mayhem 2.0, no thanks. So I don't really know where they go from there. They continue the whole Factory, Nightmare Family shit. I've already talked enough about that. Who gives a fuck about the Factory or even the Nightmare Family? Them trading wins and Nick Camarado losing to Dustin Rhodes. What was the fucking point of that? You build up this guy, then you lose that. Let me check my notes. Dustin Rhodes. Makes absolutely no sense. And the fact that it was in the main event doesn't make a lick of a difference. Thank God they're not. I mean, I enjoyed Shida and Baker as a feud. There's no reason to go back to it right now. If they want to give Shida a rematch for the championship at some point, a lot like when Shida beat Nyla Rose. She beat her for the belt. Nyla Rose, I think, disappeared for a little while. But they went back to it like 6 months later. They had a match at the Full Gear pay-per-view, and it was pretty good. So if they want to go back to that at some point down the road, that's fine. Not going back to it immediately, I'm good with. Nyla Rose and Britt Baker is the only one fresh feud I saw on Dynamite last week. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Kingston and the Bucks, I enjoyed the feud, but what more can you do there? Kingston is a fucking loser. And I hate to even say that. Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston are fucking losers. They've lost whenever it matters most. They've accrued a lot of wins as a team. They failed to become the tag team champions. Moxley's taking time off, presumably, for the birth of his kid coming soon with Renee. That's great. So he's going to be off for a little while. Does Kingston find a new partner? I don't really know what you do there. Not really sure what you do there. There was another feud, too. Oh, why is Sting and Darby Allin versus Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky continuing? That makes no sense. They literally said, these guys go find yourself another partner, Darby, and we'll face you in another tag team match then. Why? You lost to a fucking 62-year-old at the pay-per-view, or however old he is. It's time to move on. That was stupid. I mean, it was a very underwhelming show, and they have Andrade now, which I'll talk about. There's a lot of Andrade questions I'll get to. A lot of the same shit. Dynamite's a good show, but why would you... it's not even the feud's continuing. Listen, I have been one of the few defenders of McIntyre and Lashley. Continuing. People are sick to death of it. But the thing, at least with that feud, is that it makes sense to culminate it in a Hell in a Cell match. They didn't have a Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania. They've been gradually building to that. McIntyre wasn't pinned at WrestleMania Backlash. Yeah, he lost clean at WrestleMania. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But, I'm okay with that to a certain extent. Inner Circle and Pinnacle have already blown off their feud in 2 separate stipulation matches. We had a tag team match at the pay-per-view with Sting and Darby. The babyfaces conquered the heels. I mean, that happened with most of the matches on that show. Why would you continue the feud? McIntyre hasn't conquered Lashley yet, so it makes sense to continue the feud, at least for one more pay-per-view inside of a big blow-off stipulation match. I don't know. I know this isn't a WWE AEW thing, because WWE does this shit all the time. But AEW is just very uncharacteristic of them to continue feuds that just don't need to be continued. Mike P. from Facebook, his question was, do you think John Cena's return will be a one-off promo or an in-ring return, or an in-ring run of matches? Everyone seems to be expecting a series of matches, but now that he's doing the movie thing, I can see him in the same situation as The Rock, not allowed to wrestle and risk injury. That's a great point. I haven't seen a lot of people say that at all. I know Cena's not quite at the level of a Dwayne Johnson yet, in terms of movie and Hollywood success and stuff, but he is doing a lot of different projects. I mean, he was involved in the Suicide Squad. I think he recently wrapped up, or will be soon wrapping up, filming for Peacemaker, the new HBO show, a spinoff of did I say Spirit Squad? Did I fucking say Spirit? No, I said Suicide Squad, right? Could you imagine a show about the fucking Spirit Squad? The spinoff show to the Suicide Squad, which hasn't even come out yet, so they already filmed the show about Cena's character, the Peacemaker, which I assume I think they assume it's already going to be a success, which is why they did the show. I'm not exactly sure how that works. But he's doing a lot of stuff right now. He was in the F9 movie coming out, I think, this month, which I'll probably go see. I saw the recent ones. Yeah, so I don't know. That's interesting. I think he will be back for a match. I don't think we would be hearing so much about a match from Cena if he wasn't going to come back and do a match. I've spoken to John. I interviewed him back in April. I've seen other interviews that he's done. He is more adamant about coming back and doing a match than The Rock ever was. And I love The Rock, and The Rock has come back and done a lot of cool stuff. But The Rock never said, for the most part, I mean, aside from recently in a match with Roman Reigns, he's never said, I'm coming back to work a match and do this guy, work this guy, blah, 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 blah. He made it pretty clear that he was coming back at some point, but not necessarily wrestling. Cena clearly wants to wrestle. The Rock thing, again, he's just a bigger star, so there might be more limitations in place. Cena is at that level, but not exactly at Dwayne's level yet, the Rock's level. So I think he can kind of get away with not even an in-ring run of matches. I think just one match, honestly. I don't think this is 2017 anymore where he can come back, do matches on Raw and on SmackDown and on pay-per-view. even as early or as recently as 2019. He didn't wrestle a whole ton. He didn't even wrestle on pay-per-view at that point. I'm not even really sure why he came back in retrospect, but he came back. He had a couple of matches with like Elias, and maybe that was 2018, but he definitely had a couple of matches with guys like Elias, and he faced, didn't he face Andrade in like an episode of SmackDown? It was like Cena and Becky versus Andrade and Zelina. He was involved in a 6-man on Raw, 6-man tag, a fatal 4-way, and that was it. So I don't even see him doing that anymore. I mean, it was pretty evident like last year. I don't think Cena would have wrestled on SmackDown or on Raw, before WrestleMania 36, before the feud with Bray. I think fans or no fans, he still would have saved the one-off match for Mania and would have left after the show anyway. I don't think that really changed much. Going forward, I don't see Cena coming back and doing the whole Raw SmackDown thing anymore. I don't. I'm not saying he won't ever wrestle on those shows again, but it's evident to me that even if he comes back for a match, that's lucky enough for us fans, but it's going to be for like a one match. There was no real reason, like in 2017, the guy was bouncing around from random feud to random feud because he said he would come back, and they did a whole bunch of stuff with him. But he had a match with fucking like Baron Corbin, which was shit. He had a match with Rusev, which was a flag match, which was a complete waste of time. Like, if you're going to bring back John Cena, make it for something special, And a match with Roman at SummerSlam, or really anyone else that I listed in that article of mine for Bleacher Report last week, whether it be a Bobby Lashley or a Roman Reigns or someone newer like that, and Adam Cole seems far-fetched to some, or a Karrion Kross or whatever, that to me makes the most sense. It does. So, I don't know. I don't think a whole run of matches is in the works. I know he might come back for that July SmackDown, but I don't think he would wrestle. Maybe he's in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't fucking know. But I think he comes back for SummerSlam, does the honors or loses to someone, and then disappears back off into Hollywood. The guy's schedule is getting a lot smaller in terms of time he has available. A lot like The Rock. So I think he will wrestle again. I don't think we're quite at that point yet. I don't think it'll be for more than one match, though. I do think it'll be a one-off. He loses and then disappears again. No L from Facebook as well. Do you think Andrade will be AEW champion in the future? He could be. I don't know if he will be, but, I think with the right push and, I don't know if he can be champion on his own. He didn't speak English for very long. The thing is that he spoke English fine during his promo on Dynamite, and I had seen and heard people say, like, oh, he doesn't need a mouthpiece. He can speak well on his own. He really can't. I mean, you listen to any interview this guy has done, and he doesn't do a lot of media, and he's gotten better at learning English, and he just can't speak it very well. He just can't. And he can speak decently enough to the point where it's not like, oh, you can't speak English, don't push the guy. But he very clearly needs someone like a Zelina Vega by his side. Vicky Guerrero is not that fucking person. I can go off about that for hours, but that is such a pointless pairing. It's a complete detriment to Andrade. He does not need her. I hate Vicky at this point. It's not even like, oh, get off my TV type of thing. It's like, well, I mean, it really is actually. It's not like, oh, boo, Vicky. It's more like her shtick is terrible. It's tired. It hasn't benefited Nyla Rose. It certainly hasn't done any wonders for her whatsoever. If anything, it's hurt Nyla's momentum. They're not even on the show, really. Vicky's just terrible. So I would get her as far as fucking away from Andrade as possible. Keep Andrade either on his own and not cut many promos, or reunite him with Zelina if she doesn't go back to WWE, or I heard people say Selena De La Rente from I almost said WCW, MLW, that would be cool. Someone like that, or really almost anyone else but Vicky Guerrero. But could he be AEW champion in the future? It's possible. I do expect him to beat Kenny for the AAA Mega Championship in a couple of months in August when they have their match at the AAA pay-per-view. Maybe they can go off of that and give him an AEW title shot if Omega's still champion at that point, which I expect he will be. And then he loses. I don't think he'll be AEW champion anytime soon. There's a lot of other people, honestly, in the company right now I would, put the belt on before Andrade. I think Darby's a future champ. MJF, the fact he hasn't gotten a run yet doesn't overly surprise me, but I would give him a run before Andrade. Obviously, Hangman Page. That's like 3 names right there. Even Jungle Boy, who's a homegrown AEW guy, just feels like he'd be a better fit for that title in the next 2 years than Andrade would be. And Andrade's still relatively young. I think he's only 31, so he has plenty of time. It's not like he's old and we got to put the belt on him right now. He can be champion at any point, I think. So He could be. I'm not going to say no or yes, but I think he could be. And with the right momentum, and if he's on the right upswing, there's a good chance he probably will be at some point down the road. No's second question here. Thoughts on NWA's all-women's pay-per-view? I laughed when Mickie James took a shot at WWE. I think I missed that. I watched the promo. I missed the shot that she took at WWE, and I can't say I blame her. But I think it's awesome. I think it's really, really cool. I heard the rumor being speculated earlier on in the day yesterday. They announced that at the beginning of Power last night. I think it's a great idea. I know Mickie talked extensively when she got released a month or two ago about how she wanted to do another pay-per-view. And someone had told her, I forgot who it was, or if she even said who it was, they said that women's wrestling either isn't a draw or the Evolution pay-per-view was like the worst buy rate of all time, which I don't know, buy rate-wise, who even goes by fucking buy rates anymore? Everything's on the network around Peacock, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that Evolution pay-per-view was one of the best main roster pay-per-views I've ever seen from this company in the last decade, at least. It was a great show. The fact they never did another one, it was evident to me they never did another one because they only did it because they had Ronda on the roster. They only put the women in the main event that year because they had Ronda on the roster. Yes, the women were in the main event of WrestleMania this year, but if it was a one-night show, you can bet your ass that Sasha and Bianca would not have been the main event. And I thought they had a great main event, but I'm just saying realistically here, if it was a one-night show, they would not have been the main event. In WWE's eyes, they're just not as much of a priority as the men are. And I think that's changed since Ronda left, which I think I talked about this last week. I won't really go into it again, but there really has been a change with the women's wrestling scene in WWE where after Becky got pregnant and Ronda took time off, and even Charlotte was gone for the good chunk, for a really good chunk of the better part of 2020, they just stopped giving a shit about women's wrestling. And it's not that it's quite at the point that it was 10, 15 years ago. They're actually on the show and they're doing stuff, but a lot of these women don't mean as much as they should. That's the biggest problem. So I think an all-women's NWA pay-per-view is cool. They have a lot of great women. I thought both women's matches at their most recent pay-per-view were actually really good. Camille and Serena Deeb had a really good match. And the women's tag team match was also good. Taryn Terrell was in there. She made strides during her Impact run close to a decade ago. Less than that, but she was in Impact 5, 6, 7 years ago and had a lot of really good matches. Taryn Terrell was there. Kylie Ray they just signed. She's obviously really good. Hopefully she's doing better and she'll be there, long term. I know she was in AEW and then she left. She was in Impact, then she left. Hopefully NWA this works out for her. Third time's the charm. They have Melina who can still go. Thunder Rosa is great. They don't have a lot of women beyond the 6 I just mentioned, but those are 6 fine talents right there. And obviously some of them are from, actually they're all NWA. I was going to say some of them are from AEW, but they're not. I mean, Thunder Rosa's in AEW, but she's not exclusively, but first and foremost, at least for now, she's in the NWA. So I would use those 6 women. You need more than 6 women to make a pay-per-view, though. Obviously, Mickie James, I would have to assume, will be a part of it. That's really cool. Get Mickie back in the ring. She should have never been out of the ring in the first place. And then use other women from AEW and Impact. Impact is working with AEW right now. I don't think Impact and NWA have any sort of relationship. At least, they did 15 years ago. But I would work with Impact on that. I would work with AEW definitely on that. I would work with even Ring of Honor on that. They don't have a lot of women right now from what I understand. They have Quinn McKay, who's more of a correspondent. They have Angelina Love, who just isn't really good. Mandy Leone. They don't really have much of a women's division, but they are doing a women's tournament this summer. And NWA and Ring of Honor were working together again before the pandemic. Granted, that was really kind of based off of the Marty Scurll stuff, and he's no longer there. But they could still do something. I think if you get all the promotions in on this, WWE will obviously have no part of it. But if you can do like an all-in for women, I think that's fucking cool. And I think there's enough talent out there to make it work. I would love to see that, including all the free agents, all the other people they just let go. Ruby Riott could be a part of it. Santana Garrett can be a part of it. I think she'd be a great fit in the NWA. Peyton Royce, Billy Kay, those are 2 more names that you can have be a part of it. I think that'd be awesome. So hopefully we do get to see that at some point. We are going to see it, but hopefully we do get to see all these other companies working together come the NWA All Women's pay-per-view in late August. At Reborn again from Twitter, John Ritland. Check out his YouTube show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Does great stuff. His first question was, so they pretty much finished off any remaining credibility Shayna Baszler's character had left with that ending to Raw, right? Pretty obvious that I hated it as well as others did. Yeah, it was fucking trash. I mean, I won't get into it too much here because I just don't want to spend the time and the energy ranting about it, but it was absolute garbage. I think they killed off any credibility she had left, and I talked to her 2 weeks ago, and I think Shayna's great. She's a really cool person, and even in the ring, she's a lot, I think she's great in there too. And it hurts me to see her booked so badly. I mean, I think, honestly, I was hoping when I talked to her and I said it was, I'm looking forward to the Reginald match, which was kind of bullshit, but I was looking forward to seeing her just absolutely murdering this guy and then hopefully getting back on the right track. That's what I was stupidly expecting. Oh, she'll kill Reginald and then she'll go back to, being a dominant force in that women's division. Nope, they just had her lose, and then they did this stupid, the stupid storyline and the dumb angle with Alexa Bliss and Lily and Shayna at the end of Raw this week, which was complete and utter garbage. Yeah, any credibility this woman had as of like a week. Oh, the fucking Alexa just went off because I said Alexa Bliss. Yeah, so any credibility that Shayna had left went completely out the window as of Monday's Raw. I mean, how anyone can take her seriously as a threat to that Raw Women's Championship or really any title at this point is beyond me. They have completely ruined this woman. It's not even like they're not doing anything with her. Like, that would be one thing. I'm not even honestly sure what's worse. Not having these people on TV or having them on TV and putting them in the main event segment and then ruining their, credibility with dumb shit like this. This was just incredibly stupid. Moving on, though, to his next question. So about that ending to When Our Shadows Fall, or When Our Shadows Fall, pay-per-view, the NWA pay-per-view, was that the right decision, especially for a show fans were expected to pay $20 a pop for? No, it wasn't. I mean, John, you and I have talked about this before. We tweeted back and forth about it on Twitter, either yesterday or a day or two ago, and whenever it was. But yeah, no, I didn't like the ending. So basically, for those who didn't watch it, which I assume is most of you, the main event saw Nick Aldis defend the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship against Trevor Murdoch. Good match. Trevor Murdoch's a great babyface. A lot of people are like, oh, get that belt off of Aldis. It's not like there's any one person that should be beating Aldis for that championship, in my opinion. It's not like, oh man, this person really should have beat him. I can't think of anyone. Maybe Pope? Pope's getting close. If he gets another one or two more defenses as TV champion, he'll earn a world title shot. So maybe it's Pope. Maybe it is Trevor. Maybe they hold off until the next pay-per-view. I don't know. But with the ending to this, this show, with the When Our Shadows Fall pay-per-view, it was so fucking convoluted, and they had the rest of Strictly Business, which is Nick Aldis' faction, come out. They took out the referee right before Murdoch was about to win, and then when the referee was down, Murdoch used the chair on Aldis, which apparently the referee saw, and then when Murdoch had Aldis in like a submission move or whatever, it looked like he had passed out or tapped out or whatever, and we had a new champion. But no, the referee simply called for the bell because he was disqualifying Murdoch because he saw Murdoch use a chair on Aldis. That is one, stupid finish, but two, not a finish you do in the main event of your pay-per-view at a time, which John had specified when we talked about this on Twitter, at a time where the product doesn't have a lot of buzz around it. NWA came back with Power a few years ago, and they had a lot of goodwill with people. They had the Into the Fire pay-per-view, which was really, really good. They lost all of their buzz as soon as the pandemic happened, and they had to stop shows. They were doing absolutely nothing. Even the Ring of Honor was doing, weekly shows with just recaps and shit. NWA wasn't doing shit. So then they come back. They lose a lot of their roster, like half of the roster, probably more than that is gone. They all went to various companies. And now that they're back, you have to watch the show behind a paywall, which I will pay for. It's a couple bucks a month on Fight. I typically wouldn't, but I enjoy Power and I want to watch it, so I'll pay for it. Most people won't, though. They only watched it because it was free on YouTube, so that's another thing. And it's not like they're putting out this amazing product where people should be paying the $5 for Power. Power's been a solid show since it's been back, but doing a fucking pay-per-view ending like that is complete bullshit. I mean, honestly, that was completely stupid. So, yeah, I thought it was dumb. I know it was like, oh, the old school finish. Like, that's what the old Dusty Rhodes would have done 40 years ago. Let's leave that shit in the 1970s and 80s, please. We don't need that shit in our wrestling in 2021, please. Again, I know that's what they used to do back in the day, and I love the old school feel that the NWA brings. That's one old school tactic I don't need to see brought back, personally. It just cheats people out of their money at a time where they need people to give a fuck about the product and trust the company and trust them to give them their $20 worth. The overall pay-per-view I thought was really good and a lot of good matches, but that ending was completely lame. His next question, do you think the drop in ratings for Dynamite has solely been based on the fact that it's been on Fridays, or is it because the show quality has dipped for the last few weeks? Now, I think it's a Friday thing, because I thought the show before the pay-per-view was good, and I think it got a good rating. I don't remember. I think it was in the high, 800,000? It wasn't that bad of a number from what I can recall. The Friday before Double or Nothing 2 weeks ago. Then they have this week's show. It's not like, oh man, if Double or Nothing sucked, or the Friday Night Dynamite the week before sucked, I'd be like, okay, I can kind of understand why the rating this week wouldn't be that great. But the Dynamite was good. More importantly, the pay-per-view was great. Like, why wouldn't people be watching it unless it's on a Friday at 10 p.m.? So that definitely hurts the momentum because people are like, okay, why isn't it back on Wednesdays? And people just forget, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not like, oh, SmackDown, let's watch Dynamite. Like, you and I might say that. But most people probably aren't even thinking, like, today's Wednesday, people think that it's on, it's not, then they just forget about it and they don't watch it. They just catch the clips, or it's just too late for people, which I completely understand. 10 p.m. is really fucking late for a 2-hour show. So it definitely is a Friday night thing. I don't think it's because the show hasn't been like white hot in recent weeks, that being Dynamite. But I thought the pay-per-view was great, so you would think, oh, people would want to tune in to see what's going to happen, and even Andrade showed up because we've seen people debut on the Dynamite after pay-per-views before. Miro showed up after a pay-per-view. They did the whole MJF Pinnacle swerve after Revolution last time. The Scorpio Sky heel turn after the pay-per-view last time. They had FTR show up after Double or Nothing last year. So it just wasn't that hot of a show aside from the Andrade debut. It was kind of just a continuation of old shit. That's not why the rating was low, though. Again, if you told me the rating for this coming week was low, because last week's Dynamite was then I get it. But it really didn't make a lot of sense for that show to do a bad rating unless it was on a Friday at 10. I mean, any momentum Dynamite had, it still has momentum, obviously. It's a good show, but momentum on Wednesdays, being alone, unopposed, being preempted for a whole fucking month is terrible. That's awful. Because when they go back to Wednesdays, how many people after a month are going to remember that it's even on? So that's, I think moreover than anything else, as people have brought up, that it's not good news for Rampage, which I think will be a 1-hour show, not 2. But a 10 p.m. show on a Friday just is a really dumb time slot. Now, I know they're trying to capitalize off of SmackDown when SmackDown has more viewers than Raw. I get it. But still, 10 p.m. on a Friday is just dumb. It's just dumb. For a secondary show, it's not even that important of a show. It will be an important show. It's not going to be dark, apparently, but I don't know. It's just not good news for Rampage. I could see Rampage doing a good number the first couple of weeks, and maybe the first week or two, and then it's going to drop down to that 500,000 range, if not lower. Which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing for that time slot, but then again, I also understand, I'm not really sure when else you do the show. And don't say, oh, you can't do it on Mondays or Tuesdays because of Raw. Who cares about, or not Raw, but because of Dark and Dark Elevation. Who gives a shit about those shows? You can easily move that stuff, but, again, Raw is not all on Mondays. You can't do it on Raw. You shouldn't have it go up against another show. Maybe NXT, which I'm done with the whole Wednesday, Tuesday night, Saturday night war shit. We don't need another one of those things. It's a waste. It's not going to do them any favors. I think Saturday night would be perfect, to be honest with you. I don't even know if that's an option. I know basketball and all that other shit, and they're going to be on TBS. I don't know if that's going to make much of a difference, but I had seen people say, oh, maybe Saturday night. That's the old 6:05 time slot for the NWA and stuff like that. I think that'd be great. I don't think they would do that, but I think that'd be cool. Fridays are kind of taken by SmackDown. 10 p.m. is just too late. Thursdays would be ideal. Oh, yeah, there's Impact, but again, who gives a shit for the most part? Thursdays also are basketball, though. Tuesdays and Thursdays and Wednesdays, I think, are all basketball days and hockey or whatever else. So it would have to be Monday or Friday, which are already taken, or Saturday. For Saturday might be taken too, but I would probably do Saturday over Friday, just because I think Friday at 10... Would you get that many more people watching on a Saturday night compared to a Friday night at 10? I don't know. I'm not a ratings expert, but I would assume so. That's just me, though. At RJ_Marceau, I already answered this first question, but why is AEW continuing all storylines post Double or Nothing? I have no fucking clue. Maybe just because they haven't quite figured out what they want to do next. I know their next pay-per-view isn't until August or September and early September, not for another 3 months, but you can at least kick off some fresh shit. Like, I know they're doing Omega and Jungle Boy at the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to that. And they have Andrade in the mix now, which was your second question. But still, a lot of these feuds do not need to be continued. So that was your second question. What do you do with Andrade? You and I went back and forth over text about this. I have no idea. So I think all the people that he could be feuding with are all currently busy. That's the problem. I see him just racking up a few wins. Like when Christian first showed up, he racked up a few wins, faced Frankie Kazarian. He didn't really do anything until the Team Taz stuff came about like a month later. I think Andrade will probably do the same thing. They'll probably have him beat, who's a lower level babyface, Joey Janela or some shit. I don't really want to see that, but imagine Andrade, like, all the opponents he could face in AEW, let's put him up against Joey Janela. I can only imagine, but so I could see him doing stuff like that, and then like come next month, because there's 3 people I think would be perfect for him to feud with. I know Kenny Omega's who he's facing at the end of the year, or at the end of the summer, but Omega's a heel. I just don't really see that making sense right now. Not in AEW. Keep that to AAA. Maybe down the road you could do that in AEW. 3 people come to mind as for who we should feud with. Sammy Guevara, who is currently busy with Inner Circle and Pinnacle, so that's not going to work right now. Jungle Boy, who's currently feuding with Kenny Omega, kind of. Maybe you can have him feud with him after his title match. And then Darby Allin, who's also currently busy, still, for some reason, with Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. There's also Christian. I don't really want to see him work with Christian. Not that they haven't... I mean, Christian was retired by the time that Andrade came into the company in 2016, but again, that'd be a good match, but it's like Andrade needs to be built up. Christian still needs some wins. I'll talk about the Christian and Matt Hardy thing in a moment. I just don't think that makes really much sense. Imagine, I don't know. Christian, I'm sure, would want to work with Andrade, but I don't think Andrade needs to be working with Christian. I really don't. Lance Archer. Lance Archer, actually, now that I thought about it, isn't a bad idea. The problem with that, too, is that Archer needs some fucking wins. Archer needs a lot of wins right now. He lost to Miro again. He fell short of becoming TNT champion again when he lost to Miro at the pay-per-view. What do you do with Lance Archer? If he faces Andrade, he's losing. But, I mean, I guess it would do more to benefit Andrade than it would to help Lance Archer. So that's one idea. I think he's just going to be spinning his wheels for right now. Just because I don't see him getting involved in the TNT title picture and feuding with Miro or facing Miro. He would lose anyway. Miro shouldn't lose that thing anytime soon. He shouldn't feud with Kenny. We have all heel champions right now in AEW, so it's not really the best time for Andrade to be debuting. Yeah, but I see him doing like the mid-card feuds for right now, then maybe being built up for a main event feud with a guy like a Hangman or maybe a Jericho. I don't really need to see Jericho and Andrade, but you know, at least he's a top-level guy, and Andrade can beat him one-on-one, and it's a good win for him. So maybe Hangman and Cody. Cody's an idea. Cody's fucking feuding with, the Factory right now, which is a completely pointless feud. Hey, maybe Andrade feuds with Cody, beats him on his way to the World Championship. You know, I don't hate that idea. So of all the people I just said, Archer and Jungle Boy, maybe Jungle Boy, he's also going to lose to Omega, and he should lose to Andrade, so maybe not. I would go with Cody Rhodes. He's coming off a win over Ogogo. He's coming off of a win over Ogogo, I should say. So I think he would be perfectly fine losing to Andrade, hopefully. So I would do that match probably as Andrade's first feud in AEW. As long as they don't make it about America versus Mexico. And we got enough of that shit with the Anthony Ogogo-Cody feud. We don't need to see any more borders being brought into this and make this like a fucking, a country versus country thing. Just make it 2 good wrestlers against each other. What a concept. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, your thoughts on the Roman Reigns and Usos angle. I've been digging it. I'm enjoying it. I've seen some people say, oh, it's getting old and blah, blah, blah. They're going to have to get to the next chapter come Hell in the Cell or soon after. The Usos are going to have to pick a side, or at least Jimmy is going to have to, or something. But I think they're progressing it really well. Like, they came back together. They lost the tag team title match. They're transitioning into Roman versus Rey. They just got to make a cohesive unit out of Reigns and the Usos, which I think they will at some point. So I'm still digging the storyline. If they were doing the same thing for like 3 months, 2-3 months in a row, that's a problem. But Jimmy's only been back a month, and they're still doing interesting stuff with them. So I'm totally fine with it for now. His second question, had Batista stuck around in 2010, how would his role in the Nexus invasion be like? That's a great question. I don't think he really would have been involved with it much. I know the entire company was involved in that thing. Sheamus, even fucking Bret Hart was involved in it. Jericho, Edge. They were all involved in it. I just don't really think Batista needed to be involved with it. I mean, it really was more of a Raw thing, actually, not the entire company. That's inaccurate, because over on SmackDown, you had Kane and Rey Mysterio, CM Punk, The Undertaker. None of those guys were involved in it, so I think if Batista stuck around, I know he wasn't drafted to SmackDown, but he didn't need to be because they knew he was leaving. I think Batista was he even on Raw? I think he was on SmackDown before he left. I know he was on Raw a lot in the feud with Cena, but technically he was on SmackDown. I probably would have just put him on SmackDown. There was no real reason for Batista to be involved in the invasion stuff. I don't need to see Batista versus Wade Barrett or teaming up with John Cena and putting their differences aside. I think Batista probably just would have gone back to SmackDown. That's what I figured would have happened. At Farron's53 or Farron's53, I always forget how to pronounce your last name. Jared, I apologize. But your question was, why are AEW pushing the potential Brian Cage face turn so hard when Ricky Starks is right there and ready to be a top face? Well, one, Ricky Starks is hurt right now. I do see Starks also being a top face at some point. The guy's got charisma for days. I'm a big Starks fan. I'm perfectly fine with them not turning him face. Brian Cage turning face is weird to me. I already mentioned a wealth of baby faces that this company has. They're not like main event baby faces, but they already have Archer, Cody, Darby, Jungle Boy. They have, who else did I mention? Christian. There was someone else. Darby, Jungle Boy, and, oh God, who else is busy right now? I don't remember. Lance Archer, Cody. I thought there was someone else that I mentioned that who else was involved in Double or Nothing shit? Oh my God, it's going to bother me now. All right, we're looking it up now. We're going to look it up. Darby, Jungle Boy. There was someone else I'm like, oh, they're busy right now. Maybe it was Cody. Orange Cassidy is another babyface they had that I completely forgot about. Maybe he confused with Andrade. Eddie Kingston is another one. They have a lot of babyfaces. Holy shit. Yeah, they don't need to be turning. Oh, Sammy Guevara was the other guy. But yeah, he's busy too. Yeah, dude, they have a lot of faces. I wouldn't turn either of them. Starks, I think, is a great mid-card heel. He reminds me of like the heel equivalent of a Sammy or a Darby or a Jungle Boy. They had Sammy on the heel side, but then he turned face with Jericho and the rest of Inner Circle. So I know he's hurt right now, but even when he comes back, they need more heels. Matt Hardy isn't going to cut it. I like Matt Hardy, but they need more mid-card heels. Brian Cage can be that guy. Ethan Page and Scorpio, probably. I like Scorpio, but I don't know. He just lost, so they need to do more with him beyond that. And he feels like he's in more of a tag team right now than he is a singles guy. So hopefully at some point they can build him up. Jeez, I'm dying over here. But yeah, keep Ricky Starks heel. There's no real reason to turn him right now. I wouldn't turn Brian Cage either. I think splitting up Team Taz at this point would be dumb. I like Hobbs. I like Starks. I like Cage altogether. I don't give a fuck about Hook, but the rest of Team Taz is great. So keep them together, please. At least for right now. At Jeremy8911, also from Twitter, am I the only one who thinks that Christian is getting lost in the shuffle in AEW and has no desire to see, that you have no desire to see a feud between him and Matt Hardy? So I don't think Christian's getting lost in the shuffle. He's been pretty consistently featured, so it's not like they brought him in, they haven't done anything with him. Honestly, if anything, I think Lance Archer's getting lost in the shuffle. They just kind of bounce him around from feud to feud, loses whenever it matters most, and that's about it. Cage has not lost yet, or Christian Cage, rather, has not lost yet. He beat Kazarian, he beat Hobbs, he beat Matt Sydal, all in fun matches. He was involved in the Casino Battle Royal at Double or Nothing, and after the reaction that Jungle Boy got, I'm glad that Christian didn't win. I think that would have been a mistake in retrospect, so they had him in there till the very end. He was on Dynamite last week. He's on Dynamite again this week facing Angelico. I don't think he's lost in the shuffle. I think they need more heels for people like him to feud with is the problem. Andrade kind of helps fill in that void, which, I don't know if I want to see a Christian Andrade feud. But I think Christian's right where he should be right now. I think a Christian Omega match at some point would be cool. They teased it a while ago. I don't know if we get it on Dynamite or on a pay-per-view at some point. Maybe at All Out. I feel like All Out's going to be the Hangman match. They're in Chicago. I know they're going to be in Full Gear and St. Louis for Full Gear, but I think Chicago's a better crowd. And I might be at that show, so I kind of want to see Hangman win the belt there. So yeah, I don't know. I just think with Christian, I think he's perfectly fine right where he's at right now. He's doing well. He's winning most of his matches. He's on the show almost every week. And if he's not wrestling, he's talking. He's wrestling more now than he was when he first showed up. So I think that's great. And as far as the Hardy feud is concerned, I don't blame you one bit. I think it was Jericho who said when he first came in AEW, you will never see a Jericho-Matt Hardy match, at least one-on-one, because people have seen that before. I don't want to do matches I've seen before, or matches that people have done before. I mean, granted, we saw Jericho and Ambrose a bunch of times in WWE, but it was a different dynamic this time. Christian and Matt haven't really had a formal feud. I remember a handful of matches they had against each other on SmackDown, like in 2010, and obviously the tag team matches they had back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I'm fine with it. It doesn't really need to be a pay-per-view match. You know, Matt Hardy's role really should be outside of the ring. You guys know, I'm a big Hardy fan. I'm a big Christian fan. I'm fine with the feud as like a mid-card thing. There's no need for it to be over like the TNT Championship. It keeps Christian busy. There's history there. I think Hardy's role really should be, again, outside of the ring as a manager, doing the whole big money Matt thing I think is great. He should be helping to elevate Private Party and not be the focal point. Matt Hardy's kind of been the focal point so far. You know, he got the TNT title shot against Darby Allin a couple months ago. Private Party, how many title shots have they gotten? Fucking zero. I was hoping by aligning with Hardy and turning heel, that they would get the next tag team title shot and feud to the Bucks as heels now, and it would be really cool. Well, the Bucks have since turned heel, so you can't really do that. I don't know, the Private Party have just kind of felt like an afterthought. Matt Hardy's been more of the focal point, which I don't really like as much. It's got to be either equal or Private Party have got to be the focal point. I don't give a fuck about Butcher and Blade and Bunny and all the other Bs involved in the group. They can fuck off for all I care, but Christian and Hardy is fine. It's not that I'm clamoring for a feud between the two. I saw someone say, it's a big money feud. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's fine. Keeps Christian busy, keeps Hardy busy. I want to see more of Private Party, though. So maybe Christian can get another partner, and then Private Party can beat them two. Either way, Christian will be fine. Hardy will be fine. It's to me, it's not really that big of a deal. I don't love it, but it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. And Jeremy's second question: who do you think will switch shows in the WWE draft, and who do you think will get moved up? So yeah, there was a rumor this past week, I think from either WrestleVotes or the Matt Men podcast guy, saying that there might be a draft at the end of August. I'm fine with that. I hate when they do drafts like every fucking 6 months. It's like, dude, one a year is fine. The real problem isn't really who's on what show for the most part, in my opinion. It's the fucking creative. I mean, I think what they did the last draft, I was pretty favorable towards the results of that draft. I'm thinking, okay, they made a lot of good moves. Bray belongs on Raw. Braun belongs on Raw. They fired him anyway. Bray's not even around. Like certain people I thought were better on certain shows, and certain people have done very well since the draft. Like Bianca Belair got drafted to SmackDown, and she's been flourishing. She's the current champion and whatnot. So, yeah. So what I would do in the draft, if we're getting into late August, which is around a year from when they last did it, because they kind of do it in October, which is bizarre to me. October feels like such a weird time to do it. Right after SummerSlam makes sense. So if they're going to do it then, which I'm fine with, and really they should do it after WrestleMania. I don't know why they ever moved it, but maybe it's because of Survivor Series or because it's like the season finale and the season premiere shit every fall. I guess that's why they do it, but to me it makes more sense right after Mania, which is when they used to do the shakeup a few years ago. Not the fucking shakeup, call it a draft, and do it after WrestleMania. So as far as who should switch shows, at who was that? Noob_N_Co 1991 asked the same question, and they suggested Asuka to SmackDown, Bayley to Raw, Sasha to Raw, and Drew to SmackDown. I agree with 3 of the 4 of those. I agree that Asuka should go to SmackDown, where she hasn't been since 2019? She was there in 2019, wasn't she? Pretty sure. Yeah, she was on. Wait, when did she move back to Raw? Was it 2019 with the Kabuki Warriors? I don't remember. I think it was. I would move her to SmackDown. She's done everything on Raw. Bayley to Raw, I agree with. Again, she's kind of done everything on SmackDown. I would not move Sasha to Raw. You got to keep Bayley and Sasha separate for once. I know, Sasha and Bianca will have had their feud by that point, but keep Sasha on SmackDown. I think she's a good fit for that show. And I do agree with Drew going to SmackDown as well. So those are 3 ones that I would do. As for the other ones, looking at the roster right now, let's take a peek. Jeff Hardy, I would 120% move back to SmackDown. I don't even know why they moved him in the first place. That to me felt like a complete waste. Riddle and Orton are fine where they are because they're doing the tag team thing right now. I would move the Viking Raiders to SmackDown. They've never been on SmackDown before. Move them to SmackDown. Bobby hasn't been on SmackDown since he came back, but he's the current WWE champion, and I'm not going to move him where Drew is, so I would keep Bobby on Raw, move Drew to SmackDown. I would move Damian Priest on SmackDown could be interesting. Get him the hell away from Miz and Morrison. So maybe Priest to SmackDown. That could be cool. As far as other Raw guys, that would be most of them, I would think. Maybe Ricochet. Ricochet's never been on SmackDown before. Move him away from Sheamus for a little while once their feud is over with. Shayna to SmackDown would be, I don't know if it would make much of a difference at this point, but I would move Shayna to SmackDown. I would move Asuka to SmackDown, like you said. I don't really know who else. I would split up Mandy. I mean, the tag team division at this point is just a fucking joke. Naomi should be back with the Usos. I think they're going back on the road soon. They are going back on the road soon anyway, so you would think they're going to, be traveling together. So I'd move Naomi back to SmackDown. As for SmackDown people moving to Raw, you mentioned Bayley, which I like. Shinsuke going to Raw might be overdue. He's never been on Raw before, so he might finally move to Raw. Maybe split up Owens and Zayn finally. Maybe move Sammy to Raw. I like Kevin on SmackDown. I feel like he switches every fucking year. So I'd move Sammy to Raw, keep Owens where he is. I'd keep the Mysterios where they are. Corbin, it doesn't even matter. I'd keep the Usos and Roman where they are, obviously. Maybe Apollo to Raw. I think he's been killing it on SmackDown. I just don't think he and Big E should be on the show together for much longer. I think you got to separate those two, and I think Big E is fine right where he is. I'd keep Cesaro on SmackDown. I think he's fine right where he is. Maybe, I don't know. Probably Otis keep him right where he is. So, yeah, that's probably what I would do. And you also said, who would I call up? There's a bunch of people. I forgot. I think it was actually Jeremy who had tweeted me saying, like, I want to see these people called up. And there was a lot of people, but Io Shirai's got to move up. I know she just came back to NXT last night, but she's got to get moved up. Finn Balor, obviously. Karrion, maybe, if he loses the title on Sunday, he can get called up by the end of the summer, if not sooner. Definitely Finn, though. Definitely Io. Definitely Adam Cole. He's got to move on. Definitely those three. Toni Storm wouldn't be a bad idea. It seems like she kind of hit a wall in NXT. She's not going to win the championship, I don't think, so you might as well just move her up at this point. Pete Dunne wouldn't be a bad idea. I would like to see him hold gold in NXT first, but I don't know how quickly that's going to be. Gargano and Ciampa, obviously, but I just don't think they want to move, so probably not. But yeah, definitely those people I think are well overdue for a move to the main roster. At noob_n_co 1991, what are your thoughts on the releases last week? And where do you see the releases going moving forward? Also, will we see more WWE releases in the rest of the summer? We probably will. I thought we were done with them after April and then done with them after May. And then we got more last week. There's probably more to come. I don't know if it's going to be like behind the scenes or corporate stuff, executive cuts or more talent releases. I wouldn't be surprised if we got more releases by the end of the summer. Also, by the way, this is completely random, but going back to the draft question, I would move Cedric and or Shelton to SmackDown too, to kind of get him away from the rest of the Hurt Business. But anyway, going back to your question, Noob, I apologize. Yeah, I thought it was disappointing. I talked about these in depth with RJ on WrestleRant Radio last week. Braun was shocking. I do think he will go back. I just don't see him fitting anywhere else. I really don't want to see him in AEW. They have enough talent as it is. They don't have enough big guys for Braun to face. It's not going to work. I don't want to see him in Big Show again or him and fucking Mark Henry again. So he'll probably go back to WWE. Aleister Black will probably go to AEW at some point. Him in New Japan would be awesome. Impact or Ring of Honor would be cool, but he should be on a bigger platform, I think. Murphy would be great pretty much anywhere. Him in New Japan would be awesome. Him in AEW would be really cool. Ruby anywhere, really. I think her in Impact would be awesome. Her in AEW in that women's division would be great. So either one of those companies. Then who else got cut? Santana Garrett, I think, is a perfect fit for like an NWA. She could go back to Impact, but I think in the NWA she'd be perfect. She might have even been in the NWA before she went to WWE a few years ago. I'm almost, for whatever reason, I have a feeling that she was in NWA for a little while before she left for WWE back in 2019. I might be wrong on that. But, yeah, I would put her in NWA. And then, who else got cut? Oh, Lana. I mean, who cares? I mean, her in the ring was terrible. She was awful in the ring. So maybe just reunite her with Rusev, which I don't really think he needs. But you can put them back together if you want. They were a great pairing. They were always better together than apart. So, I mean, Miro's fine right now as it is. But if you really want to put them back together, you could do so in AEW. I really don't want to see when Kip Sabian comes back, a Penelope Ford, Kip Sabian versus Miro and Lana match. I have no desire to see that. But other than that, Lana as, like, you know, his valet or whatever is fine. I got to go back for a second to one of the Average Grunts questions from Twitter. I don't want to skip over this. So he tweeted me a screenshot of a lengthy question, so I'll just read it off here. He said, I'd like to get your thoughts, on my fantasy Money in the Bank ladder match concept. It's pretty much a fusion of the traditional Money in the Bank and TNA's Feast or Fired match, minus the getting fired part, 6 briefcases, 1 with a world title shot, 1 with an ICUS title shot, 1 with a tag team title shot, 1 with a number 30 spot in the Royal Rumble, 1 with the number 1 spot in the Royal Rumble, and 1 that blacklists you from challenging for the world title for a full year, unless you win the Royal Rumble or King of the Ring. 2 6 to 8 man ladder matches with 3 of the cases being up to grabs in each. Matches take place every year in December. I call this show Bound for Glory because I think it sounds like a great name for a pay-per-view centered around ladder matches. TNA doesn't exist in my hypothetical world, obviously. Every contract goes into effect on January 1st and expires on December 31st. That way the cases are good for the whole calendar year. Maybe make the world title case the only one that can be cashed in anytime unannounced, so there isn't 3 run cash-ins every year. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I like the idea a lot. I really don't hate TNA's idea of the whole feast and fired thing, aside from the getting fired part, which was a shoot for a while. That was fucking weird. I did like the idea of, like, 1 briefcase for 1 title. The only issue that I think that you would have with this, and I like the idea, like, you get a world title shot or a U.S. title shot or a tag title shot, whatever. The only problem I would see you running into with this is that you would have a lot of cash-ins over the year. And it kind of diminishes the cash-ins. Like, when we get 1, or technically we get 2 with the men and the women. And also, would you do 1 for the women too? Like, they don't really have a mid-card championship, so it's like, Raw women's, SmackDown women's tag team maybe. Maybe NXT, but NXT doesn't really make sense to be involved in this. So I don't know. You would have to do 1 for the women. You said 2 ladder matches, with 3 of the cases being up for grabs in each. And then, I don't know, would you have a blacklist one in one match and then not in the other? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, maybe. I don't know. You would have to have 1 for the women is one issue, and then the second issue is you're having a lot of cash-ins in one given year. That was the issue that Impact always ran into. And yeah, you said you can cash in ahead of time, or you would have to cash in ahead of time, where 1 is only a surprise. But still, maybe it's not that big of a deal if they're not all surprise cash-ins. So I like the idea overall. I do think the good outweighs the bad, and I think it could work. I don't think they'll ever do it, but I do like the idea of having, 1 briefcase for 1 title. I just don't know how you would be able to do that with the women. That's the only thing. But I do like the idea, though. To me, is like, with a little OCD in me, I love the idea of it starting at the beginning of the year and then ending at the end of the year. So you're never like, because the Money in the Bank pay-per-view is on a different date every year. So you can't really, and it also prevents them from cashing in the same night too, which we've seen a million times at this point. So I don't know. We saw it a few times with the women and a few times with the guys. We don't need to see that anymore. So I'm fine with them doing something different. But yeah, so because like with the Money in the Bank briefcase, it expires after a full year. But like, what if we've never seen that before? But like, what if the pay-per-view isn't in the same month as it was the last year? Then it just kind of gets confusing. So I like that idea a lot. I would like to see them implement something like that. I think it would freshen up the Money in the Bank concept, which has grown stale in recent years because they just haven't really done anything with the cash-ins, which have been complete shit. And the matches themselves have been good, but the cash-ins have just been garbage. So maybe doing what you suggested would help freshen things up. Let's see. Noob's next question here. Where will we see WWE in the next 5 to 10 years? Hopefully they won't sell to Disney because I would be embarrassed as both a Disney and a wrestling fan. I honestly don't know. I'm not this projectionist to where I can make predictions. I hate making predictions in general, unless it's for a pay-per-view, because I never know. You never know what's going to fucking happen. I mean, if you told me, WWE and New Japan might enter talks with each other, which they're probably not going to form a relationship, I just wouldn't believe you. Like, I'm more of like a safe choice. Like, I expect AEW and New Japan to work together at some point, which they are now. That makes sense to me. So, I don't know. I don't know where they will be. They probably will sell that by that point. I'll tell you right now, it definitely won't be to Disney. I don't think Disney gives a fuck about wrestling. Not to say that they really cared all that much about Star Wars and Marvel, which they probably did, but WWE just wouldn't be a priority to them. If anything, if they were going to sell, it would be to NBC. The network is already part of Peacock here in the States. To me, it's more a matter of when than if. I don't know if they're going to wait till after Vince dies or Vince would do it before then. I honestly don't really know. Not to get too morbid. They could sell. They might not sell. I don't know where the fucking company will be in 10 years. They make more money than ever before, even with the ratings being complete shit. Honestly, Raw and SmackDown might be off the air at that point. I really do. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think there might be a reality where ratings are so low, they get kicked off of USA Network and Fox. And they have to fund everything through like Peacock and shit like that. Where that would lead the company, I don't know, because the TV money is their main thing. They haven't run live events in a year, and they're still making more money hand over fist. So clearly it's the TV money that's really keeping them going, not the live event attendance and the live gate and whatever. So I could see them selling in the next 5 to 10 years, and I could certainly see them being kicked off TV because the ratings are just so low. I mean, Raw's ratings are lower than they've ever been. That's terrible. He also asked, what are your thoughts on Andrade being in AEW? Also, do you think him having creative control might be a problem for AEW? I like him being in AEW. I hate the pairing with Vicky. The whole creative control thing, I don't know. I don't think he has much creative control, to be honest with you. I know PW Insider, there was one report saying, maybe it was Meltzer. He was like, yes, he's going to have creative control. That's why it took so long for him to get here. And then Mike Johnson, who I trust more than Meltzer, was like, no, that's not the case. He has the same contract as literally everyone else. I don't see Andrade having creative control over his finishes. That just seems stupid to me. He's not The Rock. Like, it's Andrade, who I like, but it's like, come on, man. If that was really a prerequisite to get Andrade in AEW, he's probably not worth your time. If the guy's that much of a diva. They're not going to bury the guy. It's Tony Khan we're talking about. This guy's going to push him to the moon. If I had to take a guess, so I don't think him having creative control is even a factor. He might, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that was bullshit when I heard it, and then Mike Johnson kind of confirmed that, so I don't think that's the case. We already talked about the draft. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, what are your thoughts on Lio Rush's retirement? It sucks if it's true, and I'm having a hard time, oh man, it's such a bummer, because he already retired once or twice in the last year since he left WWE. So, or he said he was retiring. It's like the whole Jordan Miles thing. He was like, I'm done, and then he came back anyway. I don't know what's going on with Lio Rush. Apparently he had an injury, double or nothing, and he thought that was it. He just signed with New Japan like a week ago, didn't he? I heard that he signed with them. I don't fucking know. I'm not really sure, but if he actually is done, that's a shame because the guy is a great wrestler. It was really cool to see him at Double or Nothing. It's a bummer if he is indeed done. I think he'll be back at some point. I have no doubt whether it's within the next 6 months to a year, 5 years. The guy is so young, he will absolutely be back. Unless it's a career-threatening injury, which I don't think it is, he will absolutely be back at some point, so I can't say I'm too choked up about it. Let's see. Next question here from at Scarlet1 as well. What's the possible endgame for Alexa Bliss and Shayna Baszler? Also, is Raw endings truly that bad, or are people overreacting? Because I saw a few people chanting or claiming it was the worst segment ever. I don't think it was the worst Raw ending ever, but if you said to me, it's in the top 5 or 10, I would have to think about that. It really was that bad. It was really fucking terrible. I said this in my Raw Talk review, but it really was that bad. So I don't think people are overreacting at all. It was The thing is that the reaction wasn't universally negative. It's at a point now where people aren't just shitting on the company. They're just like, why are you still watching? Like, they're at the point now where they're just done. It's like you're in a relationship or something and you're just pissed at what this other person's doing. Maybe not cheating on you, but or they cheat enough times, I would hope they'd break up with them after one time. But whatever, that's your choice. I don't know. I'm going down with relationship advice here, but it's like your significant other just continuing to just betray your trust and do something stupid. It's like at a certain point, you just don't get mad anymore. You just don't give a fuck, and you're just like, I'm leaving you. Like, this is just a waste. Like, I'm wasting my time and energy here. I'm just not even mad anymore. I'm just done, I feel like that's how people are with Raw at the moment. It was fucking awful. What's the end game? Who cares? I don't know, honestly. I think they're going to do a match between the two at the pay-per-view. Alexa Bliss will probably beat Shayna. Shayna's just a stepping stone for Alexa Bliss. Oh my God, it just scared the shit out of me. No, Alexa, turn the music off, please. Alexa, turn the music off, please. Jesus Christ. I said the name again. I'm just going to say Bliss. I triggered the damn thing again. It was playing music. Anyway, I was such an asshole to the thing right now. I should definitely be nicer. Bliss will definitely beat Baszler, and then they'll move on, probably put her in the title picture against Rhea. I mean, I like Alexa Bliss. Oh my God, please don't turn on. Please don't turn on. Okay, I think we're good. I like Bliss and what she's doing right now to a certain extent. I think she's doing the character well. But the whole supernatural bullshit, taking the Fiend and giving it to her, it's stupid. It's stupid. She's committing to the character, but what they're doing with said character is dumb. Predictions for NXT TakeOver. 5 matches on the card. I see Cameron Grimes beating LA Knight to become the new $1 Million champion. I see Raquel Gonzalez retaining the NXT Women's Championship. I see Xia Li beating Mercedes Martinez. I see Bronson Reed and MSK retaining their titles. I could see Legado winning. Just because I don't know. MSK and Reed just won, so why would you have them lose? But why would you do 6-man in the first place unless Legado was going to win? That feels like an NXT TV match. It really should be Reed and Escobar one-on-one. But anyway, I think Reed and MSK are retaining, and then Karrion Kross, likely, in my opinion, retaining in the main event. So I got a lot of successful title defenses on the pay-per-view on Sunday. I could see someone like a Dunn winning if Kross is moving on up and they don't want to have him get pinned. That's definitely possible. I don't know. My gut says Karrion just won the belt 2 months ago. Keep it on him for a little bit longer, and then move him up after like TakeOver. I know Keith was champion for like a fucking month, so it really doesn't matter, I guess. But that's what I see happening. Let's see. Last question. It's a lengthy one from @Misdemeanor6. We'll wrap up with this. Vince does not understand both Aleister Black and Murphy's wrestling style, ? For me, Vince must have promised talent and told them that he liked them to their faces, only to let them down in the past before. That does not make Aleister Black look like an idiot. As for Strowman, he is still young. What do you make of the comments and stories about Aleister Black saying that Vince likes him, and it was Vince who let him go? Now people are saying that makes Black look like an idiot. Also, Braun Strowman is past it, ? Vince promised a lot of things to Lana and then broke them, ? Lastly, how can people say that Vince doesn't get Murphy and Black's wrestling style? WWE has similar style wrestlers at the moment. For me, Vince must have, you already said this, but for me, Vince must have promised and has told that he liked a wrestler to their face in the past and then lets them down. Strowman is still young. You repeated yourself a bunch there, but basically, to kind of sum everything up into one kind of giant answer here, it doesn't matter. With Strowman, the guy was apparently getting paid so much, they just didn't feel that it was worth it to keep him around. Whatever. I'm sure he'll be back under a lesser deal. With Lana, the whole promise thing, if you follow WWE long enough and hear all the stories, people have been promised shit for years by Vince McMahon. This goes back decades, and the guy he'll sometimes deliver. Most of the time, it sounds like he doesn't. So, him promising, you're going to get a push, you'll be fine, doesn't mean shit. It's the old Jedi mind trick he plays on people like, you'll be fine, or like, I don't know, like, we'll push you, or like, you're one of my favorites, and all this other shit. I don't think it makes Aleister Black look like an idiot, but for him to say like, Vince was always high on me, listen, he might have liked you. He didn't like you that much if you're not fired from the company. If you were his favorite, you wouldn't be without a job right now. So, I'm not calling Black an idiot, but that was a little questionable. The whole Vince liked me and all this other stuff, I'm sure he did, but you got to realize that you're released for a reason. It's not like they released you and they're going to bring you back under a lesser deal. Maybe they will, but it doesn't sound like that's what the case was, because he hasn't really said anything else about it. But yeah, the whole like, oh, he didn't like Murphy and Black's style. Everyone wrestles that fucking style. I don't believe that either. I think, there's a million people in the company that wrestle that type of style. So it's not like they're indie guys and they don't have indie guys in the roster. 90% of the roster at this point is indie guys. So Vince not getting Aleister Black, it's no different than him not getting Luke Harper or not getting Andrade or not getting this guy or that guy. It doesn't surprise me. It's disappointing, but I can't say I'm surprised at all. I mean, Braun getting released, he's a WWE guy through and through. That shocked me. But I think that was more of a money thing. Black getting let go in the middle of a feud, clearly they didn't plan anything, because why the fuck would you bring the guy back? Murphy was inevitable, even though, he's really good, but they haven't done shit with him for 6 months. What a waste. But yeah, I think all these guys and girls will be perfectly fine wherever they end up next. And whatever they were promised, unfortunately, they didn't get. But if they go elsewhere, I'm sure they'll be just fine. There's a lot of talented individuals. A lot of talented individuals in that group of releases from last week. And that's going to do it, guys, for this week's episode of #AskGSM for Wednesday, June 9, 2021, episode 393. We went long with this one, well over an hour, probably the longest episode in some time. But we got a lot of great questions, so it was a good week to go long. But thank you guys, as always, for sending in the questions. If you want to do so, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Or find me in the wall itself. Be sure to drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Like I said, hopefully we can do a live episode of episode number 400 coming up in early August. Looking forward to that. And a lot of other cool stuff coming here to the channel in the weeks and days to come, including more interviews. We have a low-key review of the Season 1 premiere coming up on, I think it's Friday that it's dropping. We're recording it tomorrow. Should be dropping here on Friday on the channel if you're interested in that type of thing. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.